Welcome back to Stuff About Money. I'm Xavier Angel, certified financial planner, and I am joined today by my co-host Eric Garcia, certified
Yes.
financial planner.
Yes,
How
you
you
are
doing
joined
today,
by
Eric?
me. You are joined by me. I'm doing well. I'm
Yeah.
joining you today.
Nah, look, we're together.
I'm your wingman today. I went solo last time.
You did. I'm not going to get started on why
You
you went
abandoned.
solo
You
last time.
abandoned. You abandoned me.
Well, look, I'm sorry for abandoning you.
Okay. This is
So
your show today. You got to make up for it. People don't want to hear from
perfect,
me. They want to hear from you.
perfect. Well, look, so today we're going to have our conversation is revolved around a topic that you and I were discussing on Monday, this past Monday.
Yeah.
So, my daughter, Grace, she was given a call to sit on a mock jury. And I found it interesting that you would bring children between the ages of, I think the youngest one there was 8 years old. The oldest was 13.
Is it a
Um,
murder? Was it a murder trial?
it was not a murder trial.
Drug trial?
Um, Nope, it actually had nothing to do with drugs, murders. It was based off of copyright infringement.
Uh, uh,
And so they went to this law firm, they sat down. The attorney presented their case. After they presented the case, then they went back and asked the children questions about what they thought. Was there anything that they would do different? Grace came back with some ideas, and they actually decided to change some of their arguments based off of the feedback that they received from the children.
so this was like a legitimate case.
Correct.
I would imagine details were scrubbed from the presentation, but this is a legitimate case that the attorneys were presenting to the kids to see if they could win.
Absolutely. So the purpose behind this was they wanted to keep it simple, right? Sometimes I think whether it's in the financial planning world, the legal field, accounting field, I think we make things too difficult. And so one of the things that they wanted to do was be able to come to the table,
Mm.
keep it simple, fight their argument, being able to keep it simple so that individuals understand rather than throwing all of this stuff out there that we always make it complicated. And you and I have gone back and forth with this as well when we're sitting down and we're doing these plans.
Hmm.
It's how much do we throw out there at individuals? You get these plans where you see they're 165 to 170 pages long. And this is what we give to people the industry gives to individuals when they're sitting down doing their planning. And how often is it that someone will sit down and thumb through or read through each of those pages, that 165 to 170 pages? And so this is the topic that you and I have been going back and forth and discussing. How can we do something or present something that the average individual will look at, understand, and be able to move forward with that plan?
Let me take a step back. Let me take a
Okay.
step back, and I think that there's this human nature. For some reason, we're wired to think instinctively that something that is more complicated is better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something that's more complicated's got to be better. Someone who understands something complicated has to be smarter. So we for some reason are maybe drawn to complex strategies. So in the financial space, we're drawn to these complex financial strategies that have a lot of moving parts. And what's interesting is if you look at the definition of simple, um, it's like very few moving parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Complicated, a lot of moving parts. So if something has a lot of moving parts, it's got to be better. It's got to be more
Right.
efficient. It's got to be more productive. And so what's interesting is in your example, these attorneys realize, hey, we're going to have a jury of like average people. These are not law people. They're
Mm-hmm.
not copyright people. They're not attorneys. I sat on a jury, and thankfully we had two civil attorneys. This was a criminal in criminal court, but we had two civil attorneys who worked in real estate but understood the legalese. If it wasn't for them, man, all the stuff these attorneys were presenting to us was over our head.
Right. And so when you think of an individual, Grace, 12 and a half years old, being able to sit down for 2 hours and listen to this presentation and actually come out of it and say she enjoyed it, she learned something, and be able to go back to the attorneys and say, hey, look, this is what I would do different. This is how you should present it, and ask those attorneys questions.
I love it. The 12-year-old advising the attorneys on how to present their case. And this is probably like a multi-million-dollar case.
It's great though, because like you just said, you sat on a jury, and luckily you had two individuals sitting in there with you that understood the law, that you could go back and you could ask questions because you probably didn't understand half of the stuff that came through.
So success for the attorney was winning the case. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that they were going to win the case was making it so simple that a kid could understand. It doesn't mean the case was simple. It means the attorney knows the attorney that's going to win is the one who can break it down in a way that is simple enough for a kid to understand.
Mm-hmm.
When a client hires me as a financial planner, they're not paying me for a plan. Yes, that's part of it. Okay. They're not paying me for a complex strategy, right? There's something in their financial world that's just not right, that they recognize it's not right, and they want to change it. And my ability to move them, oftentimes, to get them to do something different, a change in their behavior, save when they're not, spend less than they are, meet with an attorney to draft a will, have a conversation with their CPA about particular tax strategies. They're paying me to actually help them have meaningful change in their financial world, not for a 150-page technical plan that they may or may not follow.
Right. Because most people don't want to see 6 pages of numbers. And we had a conversation, we were looking at a retirement strategy, and you start throwing all of these numbers out, just 10 to 12 pages of numbers. You're going to get bored. You don't know what those mean. And the numbers that could...
You saying I bored you?
I think I was the one that bored you because I brought it to you and told you to look at it.
Yeah. You come to me and like, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see 40 years out. I want to know that you look 40 years out, but I don't want to see 40 years out.
Now, and you bring up a good thing there. It's not that you don't want to see 40 years out, but life happens over those 40 years. And so you could actually project a number today that could be less, it could be more, or it could be exactly on target to what you did today.
Variables. It's too complicated. There's too many moving parts.
So how do you combat that? How do you come in and say, well, you know what? We're still planning for retirement at age, whatever it may be, let's say 60. And you're dealing with the 45-year-old.
Yeah, easy. So too much in our space, financial planning has focused on the future, right? I told someone this the other day. I said, shame on our industry for turning financial advisors into retirement advisors. Retirement is a small, and I would say is probably one of the smallest pieces of what we do as financial planners. But yet our industry has painted this picture that financial advisors are nothing more than retirement advisors. Where should I put my retirement money? Yeah, that's part of it. But retirement for most people, especially a lot of our clients who are younger business owners or younger individuals with high incomes that are, man, retirement is so far away. There's so many variables that can happen between today and 20, 30 years from now. There's so many moving parts. It's so complicated to project 40 years out. So what we do is we ask the question of, yeah, I want to be here 20 years from now. Okay, cool. What is in my power today to get me there? What do I have control over today? I don't have control over the stock market. I don't have control over interest rates. I don't have control over who the president's going to be. I don't have total control over whether I keep my job or not. I don't have control of me getting this client versus that client to help my business grow. Hey, but I can control my savings.
How much your savings?
How much I borrow. Those are simple things today. So our challenge, the work of the financial planner is to help you, the client, clarify where you want to go, and then break it down into actual simple steps that you can do today to get you to where you want to be tomorrow.
So what I'm hearing from you is, and part of why I enjoy planning and planning with clients is because it's not just something that we do one time. It's ongoing. We're consistently putting together a plan and altering that plan based off of what happens in life. And so we're meeting with you on a regular basis.
Input from everywhere, right? You don't have a kid today, tomorrow you do. Making 75,000 today, you're making 150 tomorrow.
Yep. I may decide to retire at 50 or 55. And so now my whole plan changes. So it's that ongoing financial planning. It's working with us, working with clients on a regular basis so that we can make sure we're keeping up with everything that occurs in your life. I love it.
Gosh, it's over 10 years now. It's over 10 years ago. I started collaborating with Dr. Matt Morris, and some of you listening may be familiar. Dr. Matt and I had a podcast, Building Us, where we talked about money and relationships. And Matt and I, we decided that we wanted to educate counselors, because Matt said, look, counselors don't know about money, but yet money is such a big problem in family systems and relationships. So let's go ahead and educate counselors so that when they encounter couples or individuals or families that have issues related to money, the counselors are a little bit more comfortable discussing it. We're not trying to make them financial advisors, but we want to kind of up their level in understanding about money. That's when I sat down, and this is not new. These are not new necessarily. It's just my words, my vernacular, my way of explaining it. Came up with, at the time, the 4 pillars of financial security. And to me, this is simple. This is how you simplify money. I don't care where you are in the financial spectrum, how much money you make, what your net worth is. It doesn't matter. Number one, you have to know where your money is and where it's going. You have to take account of your assets and your liability, the money in and the money out of your accounts. It's not that complicated, right? Sit down, you make an inventory of that. That's foundational. It's as simple as it gets.
Did you run that by your kids to simplify it?
My kids?
Yeah, to simplify it.
So, I might have run it by. That was a long time ago. I'll tell you a story about that in a second. So fundamental to financial planning. I don't care what complicated strategies we need to do from an estate side, because I'm not saying that doesn't matter. I mean, that stuff matters. That's important. That's not where you start. I mean, there's some basic stuff you need to do first, right? If you go meet with an attorney, the first thing they're going to send you home with is an inventory sheet of all your stuff. They want to know all your stuff, right? You meet with a CPA. CPA is not going to do your taxes unless you bring in all your documents for the year and some data they need to know. And yet you go meet with a financial planner. It's like, well, Xavier, where do you want to be 30 years from now? Let's just start saving in a Roth IRA. Well, whoa, hold up. Man, I need to know everything. So you need to know everything, because if you don't know where your money's going, if you don't have control over your spending, how in the heck are you going to maximize saving for retirement? How are you going to maximize saving for your kids' college? How are you going to maximize starting that business that you want to start, whatever it is? So know where your money's, where it's going. The second thing was, man, now that you know where your money is and where it's going, let's be intentional and purposeful about planning where we want it to go. Right? You want to get out of debt, but you've never made a decision to actually put money towards your debt. You want to save to buy a rental property, but you've never actually made the decision to intentionally start saving for a down payment. You want to hire an assistant in your business, but you've never intentionally started setting money aside to hire that assistant in your business so that you can do higher revenue generating work. Right? So you got to plan, be intentional. It's simple. It's not that complicated. Now, our brains aren't wired that way. That's why it's so important to hire coaches, hire advisors, hire planners, people who are going to help you along the way. So that's it. 2 foundational things. Know where your money is and where it's going, and then plan where you want it to go. And then the third thing is squash debt. I mean, debt's an obstacle to building wealth, bottom line. I get it. If you're in real estate, leverage, but use other people's money. You're starting a business, use other people's money. I get that. I'm not saying don't do that. There's wisdom in how you use debt. That's like fire. Fire can be life-giving, right? You're cold, you start a fire, you cook your food, or fire can devastate people. And unfortunately, that might not be a good example to use now in light of what's happened in Maui. But we see the destructive nature of debt, but also the beneficial nature of debt. So use it wisely.
So by coming in and putting together a plan, you can actually, I've heard this topic coming, or this term coming around, that 1-page plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps it simple, because now everything that you've just said, I can put together a plan and bring it to you and say, here's where you want to be. These are your goals. This is what you want to accomplish. Here's how to get there. And I can do that on 1 page, as opposed to putting together 150 to 160 pages then, because I'm addressing what your needs are.
This reminds me of a story. I had a mentor of mine a long time ago. He said when he was young, a young financial advisor, he was trying to get the retirement plan for, at the time, it was a publicly traded company. He was at a big firm. And he had a connection with the CFO. He was asked to their board meeting, and he said he walked in with a stack of paper. And for those of you not on YouTube watching, I'm showing like 2 inches thick. It was like a thick stack of paper, actuarial tables. This is a long time ago. Fancy charts. CFO, CEO walks in, other board members walk in. They pick up the paper. They drop it on the desk. And they said, our next board meeting is next month, such and such a date. Don't show up unless you can fit this on 1 page of paper.
Hmm.
The dude was scheduled to present this plan, this retirement plan, to this board of a publicly traded company. They kicked them out and said, don't come back unless you can fit this on 1 paper. Take the complicated, make it simple.
Yeah. Show me, this is where I want to be. Tell me how to get there.
This is where I want to be. This is where I am. What do I need to do to get there? You talked about the 1-page financial plan. And the idea is this. This is what's important to me. Okay. This is where I am financially. These are the decisions that I need to be making now to get me there. And it's constantly changing, right? Because your objectives are changing. The top part, what's important to me, never changes. What's my statement of financial purpose? What do I value? I value time with my family, preferably traveling. Oh, okay, cool. All right. So that becomes the North Star, if you will, of your financial decisions. I want my kids to have opportunities that I didn't have when I was growing up. Oh, that's important. I need to know that. Because next time you want to buy, a $150,000 electric Porsche, I'm going to say, hey, does that align with where you want to go? Does that align with giving your kids opportunities? It might not. I don't know. But that's what you're talking about, the financial plan. Let's simplify. Let's break it down. What's really important to me? Where am I? Let me take stock of everything that I have. And let me start planning intentional steps to get to where I want to be and remove the obstacles that are preventing me from getting there.
I love it. Absolutely love it.
No, I don't want to oversimplify. Let me back up and say, I'm not saying that this is simple and easy stuff.
Well,
finances are complicated. Financial markets are complicated.
Right. And I don't think anybody is saying that you're oversimplifying it, right? You're just what you are bringing to the table. You're bringing it, you're simplifying it so that you're not coming up with, okay, you want to retire at age 65, 67. Here's how much you need to be putting together. Here's how these are the returns that you're going to get. And this is how much money you're going to have at age 65, 67. Example, the plan that we were taking a look at, if you remember, by age 67, I think it was $25 million that would have been in the account. It was this huge number. And you and I both know they're not going to have that because there are other things going on that are going to take away from that amount of money. But a computer is only going to spit out It doesn't take into account the things that happen on a daily basis.
Yeah, and that's the challenge with these. This is why financial planning is not an event. It's a process. The process of financial planning is as important as the plan itself. The process of me having a conversation with you, talking through your finances, talking through what's important to you, helping you start to make priority decisions on what you do with your money is far more important than me giving you a fancy report. I give you a report, and sometimes we do use the reports to support the advice that we're giving. I mean, there's some we have to do our work as financial planners. You know, we live in the complicated. What I'm saying is the successful financial planners are the ones who are able to take this complicated situation up here and then present it to you in a way that's easy for you to implement. If I ignore this and just give you easy steps, I don't know if it's good for you. Right? I need to understand the complicated. I need to understand my industry, my business, my tools as good as anybody. And then I got to be able to communicate it to you as good as anybody. And that's what I think is so brilliant about this law firm, to say, hey, if we can get kids to understand, right? It doesn't change this copyright law, which is fairly complicated, I imagine. I imagine the case is fairly complicated. Okay. But that doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. What matters is how is it interpreted?
How's it being presented?
How's it being
interpreted? Right.
And interpreted. So you talked about that. I run that stuff by my kids. I remember a long time ago, I was meeting with a client, and in the process of meeting with them, they asked me, hey, I've got a 16-year-old and we're trying to teach them about money. You know, what should we be doing? And my first thought was, oh my God, this is the blind leading the blind. Like, I'm trying to get you to understand these concepts, and you want to teach these concepts to your kid and you to understand them. And then it dawned on me that, oh my gosh, I need to present these concepts to my clients as though they're the 16-year-old. So what I did was I said, oh, yeah, let's break it down. Here's 3 really good lessons to teach your kid. And it gave me the freedom to talk to them like a teenager, to simplify the heck out of the concepts I was talking about that I'm trying to teach them, to give them the words to go teach their teenager. So it kind of gave me permission to quote unquote dumb down what I was trying to get them to do. I don't know if it worked or not, but again, the idea was, okay, what language would I use for? It's the I don't know, what do they say, like newscasters? They deliver their news at a 6th grade education, right? For kids, the words that they use, the grammar that they use, the vocabulary that they use. I don't know if it's 6th grade, but it is not a master's degree level English.
That reminds me, on it was either Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings. Remember, so one of the stations here in New Orleans, they used to have news for kids. Do you remember that? And they would have 2 or 3 kids on there, and the kids would come in and deliver the news. Yeah. Great concept. So
I've got
keeping it simple.
I get an email once a week that takes the major kind of event that's happening in the world, and it's delivered to parents in using words and concepts so that parents can deliver to their kids. So it's taking complicated situations and then making them simple. And I think as you know, as we start to wrap up here, I think if there's anything I want you listeners to take away is financial plans. Your financial plan does not need to be complicated. There might be complicated aspects to it, but I am regularly asked by clients about strategies. Oh, I've got a friend who's doing this and I want to do this. And I'm like, that's a great strategy. Okay. But there's some other things that we need to be doing first before we get there. There's some other boxes that need to be checked off first before we get here. You don't know your friend's situation. You don't even know if this is appropriate for your friend. I always say all the time, be careful who you take your cues from. So there's some very simple foundation, fundamental things that we need to do first before we can layer in the more advanced, complicated strategies. But we got to start with the simple. We got to start with the easy moving parts.
Great stuff, Eric. Love the conversation today.
Y'all, thanks for taking time to listen. If this stuff is meaningful to you, if you're getting value from this, go ahead and share it with someone who you think needs to hear this message. And go ahead and follow us wherever you get your podcasts.